Billionaire abandons his sick pregnant wife for a mistress. Her revenge leaves him nothing. Prepare to be swept into a storm of betrayal, heartbreak, and a reckoning so potent it will leave you breathless. This is the story of Victor Harrington, a billionaire who seems to have it all, yet finds himself insatiable for more, and Sophia Harrington, his devoted wife, whose sudden illness turns their gilded marriage into a nightmare. When Victor abandons Sophia in favor of a cunning mistress, he believes his fortune and prestige will shield him from any consequences. But Sophia has plans of her own plans that threaten to strip Victor of everything he treasures. Brace yourself for a tale of twisted loyalties, hidden truths, and the ultimate revenge. Victor Harrington was born to wealth, the third-generation heir of the Harrington banking and real estate conglomerate. From a young age, he had been groomed for power by his father, Edward Harrington, whose entire identity revolved around the company's legacy. The Harrington name carried weight in society circles, whispered reverentially at charity galas in Manhattan and high-stakes business meetings in London. As the only son, Victor was burdened with the expectation to not only continue the family dynasty, but to expand it into uncharted territories. Sophia Maxwell, by contrast, came from more humble origins. Raised in a middle-class family in upstate New York, she was the eldest daughter of Margaret and Thomas Maxwell, both public school teachers. Her upbringing was modest, but imbued with warmth. Weekends were often spent at the local lake, feeding ducks or volunteering at the community center. Sophia's gentle spirit belied a hidden reservoir of resilience, one that would become crucial later in her life. Their worlds collided at a charity fundraiser for the American Childhood Cancer Society, hosted at the Harrington Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. Sophia, working as an event coordinator, carefully arranged centerpieces and guided donors through the silent auction. Meanwhile, Victor, as the primary benefactor, swept through the crowd in a tailored Armani suit, exuding an aura of power. He barely noticed Sophia at first, simply another staffer among hundreds. But when a guest's misplaced item caused a minor frenzy, Sophia stepped in with calm precision, resolving the issue within minutes. Victor, impressed by her composure and magnetic warmth, struck up a conversation. She had no idea who he was, which only intrigued him more. He was accustomed to sycophants who fawned over his name. She, on the other hand, seemed genuinely uninterested in his fortune. After the event, they shared a quiet moment on a balcony overlooking the New York skyline. There, in the crisp evening air, they spoke about everything from Sophia's dream of starting an arts program for underprivileged youth to Victor's responsibilities as the Harrington heir. Sparks flew, dancing between them with each gentle laugh or curious smile. By the end of the night, Victor found himself requesting her number, a bold move for a man who usually had to push admirers away. Within 6 months, their whirlwind romance culminated in an extravagant engagement. Society pages buzzed with speculation. Who was this unknown woman capturing the heart of the elusive Victor Harrington? The wedding that followed was grand, a merging of two worlds that seemed destined to thrive. In the soft glow of chandeliers, they exchanged vows, promising devotion and partnership. Oblivious to the storms that lay ahead, the early months of marriage brought unbridled joy. Sophia moved into Victor's penthouse, a sprawling space high above Central Park. She found herself in a world of designer gowns, private jets, and exclusive dinners. Yet despite the opulence, her heart remained grounded. She took pride in writing thank you cards to Victor's many business associates, ensuring every last detail was immaculate, a reflection of her thoughtful spirit. Victor, for his part, reveled in showing off his new bride. He introduced Sophia to his closest friends, like Michael Donovan, a high-powered attorney, and Jennifer Caldwell, an up-and-coming fashion mogul, and boasted that Sophia's grace and warmth rivaled even the most seasoned socialites. Dinners were filled with laughter, and the city's elite seemed captivated by her quiet authenticity. Yet cracks began to form as soon as real life intruded on their bubble. The Harrington Empire was undergoing a major expansion into international markets. Victor found himself traveling frequently to oversee negotiations in Hong Kong and Dubai. Weeks stretched into months of near constant separation. Sophia tried to adapt, filling her time with philanthropic endeavors, particularly the arts program for underprivileged youth. She'd always dreamed of launching. Unbeknownst to Victor, Sophia began experiencing bouts of fatigue and dizziness shortly after their honeymoon. At first, she chalked it up to the stress of social obligations and adjusting to a new lifestyle. But one afternoon, she fainted while assisting at a children's art fair. Terrified, she sought medical advice. The initial test results were inconclusive, prompting her doctor to recommend further analysis. Concerned, Sophia tried to share her worries with Victor during a rare dinner together, but he was distracted, half listening while texting an overseas associate. She sensed his frustration when she asked him to accompany her to the doctor's appointment. "I have to handle a crucial meeting in Tokyo that week," he said dismissively. "Can't you just go with a friend?" Hurt, Sophia retreated into silence. She assured herself it was a temporary rift, just the natural tension of a demanding business schedule. After all, Victor had always been a decisive, results-oriented leader. She told herself she could handle the medical issue alone, that it was likely nothing serious. Yet each time she glanced at the new test orders from Dr. Samantha Lee, an eminent specialist she'd been referred to, an uneasy dread prickled at her heart. Little did she know, the seeds of neglect had already been planted. While her condition slowly worsened, Victor's devotion to her quietly faltered under the growing weight of his ambitions. And though neither could predict it, this gap between them was set to widen beyond anything they had ever imagined. Months slipped by in a blur of conflicting obligations. Victor jetted around the globe, sealing deals that would catapult the Harrington Empire into new financial heights. Meanwhile, Sophia sank deeper into a haze of medical appointments and lingering malaise. Her once healthy complexion grew pale. Even climbing a flight of stairs left her short of breath. Her parents, Margaret and Thomas Maxwell, visited often, noting the worry lines forming around her eyes. They urged her to slow down and confide more in Victor. "He's your husband," Margaret reminded her gently. "He vowed to protect and cherish you." But Victor was perpetually unreachable, always in a meeting, on a flight, or locked in his office for hours. Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that she was an afterthought. At last, Dr. Lee presented a heart-stopping verdict. Sophia suffered from a rare autoimmune condition that required immediate and aggressive treatment. Without it, her organs could deteriorate, potentially leading to life-threatening complications. "It's imperative," Dr. Lee emphasized, "that you have full emotional and financial support. Stress can worsen this condition significantly." Shaken, Sophia made the bold decision to fly to Tokyo unannounced to share the news with Victor in person. She navigated the bustling city alone, checking into a modest hotel to avoid drawing attention. The next day, she ventured to the Harrington Asia offices, only to be met by Anna Shimizu, Victor's local assistant, who politely informed her he was in a closed-door meeting. For over 4 hours, Sophia waited in a plush lobby, occasionally sipping tea and trying to quell her rising anxiety. When Victor finally emerged, a flood of relief washed over her. But that relief was short-lived. He barely concealed his annoyance at her unexpected arrival. "I'm in the middle of finalizing a multi-billion-dollar transaction," he snapped in hushed tones. Couldn't this have waited? Sophia stared at him, her hands trembling as she clutched the medical reports. "Victor, this isn't just a cold. The doctor said, I need immediate treatment. I need you." Victor sighed, running a hand through his hair as if she were an inconvenience. "Sophia, I'm in the middle of finalizing a $1 billion deal. I can't just drop everything." "But I'm your wife," she whispered, her voice cracking. He exhaled sharply. "You're also an adult. You can handle this on your own." The coldness in his tone cut deeper than any illness ever could. Heart pounding, Sophia explained her diagnosis, voice trembling. She showed him brochures and lab results, pleading for understanding. She needed his presence, his promise to stand by her side. Victor's tense expression loosened into mild concern, but only briefly. "Look, I'm sorry you're going through this," he said, "but I can't drop everything right now. Let's talk when I'm back next month." Next month. The words rang hollow in Sophia's ears. She had crossed continents, carrying terrifying medical news, only to be brushed aside. Despite the tears welling in her eyes, Victor turned away, gesturing to his phone, which was buzzing again with business updates. Feeling utterly alone, Sophia left the office building, her mind spinning with the realization that her marriage's foundation was far shakier than she had ever dared to believe. Sophia returned to New York emotionally drained, anticipating at least a phone call from Victor offering some reassurance. Days turned to weeks with no word from him, aside from terse text messages instructing her to hang in there and trust him. Meanwhile, her condition worsened. Dizziness and chronic fatigue became her new normal, yet she pushed on, determined to maintain a veneer of normalcy in the face of prying social circles. That was when she began hearing rumors about a striking woman named Alana Sinclair, an investor who had recently partnered with Harrington Industries in Hong Kong. Alana, a statuesque brunette rumored to hail from old British money, had been spotted dining with Victor at an upscale restaurant in Kowloon, their manner suspiciously intimate. Sophia brushed these whispers aside. Gossip in high society ran rampant, and she had more pressing concerns than idle chatter. Yet the rumors persisted. Michael Donovan, a family friend and lawyer, discreetly pulled Sophia aside during a charity event. "Listen," he said, his voice low to avoid being overheard by curious bystanders. "I'm hearing that this Alana woman is spending an awful lot of personal time with Victor. You might want to ask him directly." That night, in the quiet of the penthouse, Sophia mustered the courage to ask Victor point blank. He was home for a fleeting 48 hours before flying out again. While packing his suitcase, he seemed exasperated by the confrontation. "Alana is an important partner. We've secured major foreign investments through her. That's all," he declared, zipping his luggage shut. "You know how people love to invent scandals." Wanting to believe him, Sophia accepted his explanation. But the following morning, as she scrolled through her phone, she stumbled upon a tabloid photograph of Victor and Alana leaving a hotel in Hong Kong together at midnight. The headline was brutal, suggesting a torrid affair between the rising queen of finance and the newly distant Harrington heir. Trembling with betrayal, Sophia confronted him once more. This time, Victor's mask slipped. Instead of denial, she received anger. "Stop snooping into my affairs," he snapped. "I have enough stress closing deals without you playing detective." That night, Sophia scrolled through social media, her fingers numb as she found new photos of Victor and Alana, this time in Paris. The caption read, "Power couple spotted at exclusive charity gala." Her breath hitched. She recognized the diamond cufflinks Victor wore in the picture. They were her wedding gift to him. The memory of placing them on his wrists the morning after their honeymoon came rushing back, a cruel reminder of what they had once been. Sophia felt her throat tighten, words failing her. Victor, once the beacon of her dreams, now stood before her as a stranger. In his eyes, she saw neither regret nor empathy, just a cold finality that hinted he might be past the point of caring. The heartbreak was almost physical, an ache in her chest that matched the flare of pain she occasionally felt under her ribs, courtesy of her medical condition. By the time Victor left for his flight, Sophia was left sobbing on their empty bed, one trembling hand clutching the tabloid. She could no longer ignore the truth. She was sick and alone, and her husband was slipping through her fingers into the embrace of another woman. In the weeks that followed, rumors about Victor and Alana became a near constant presence in society columns. Every new photo, every cryptic hint, felt like another knife in Sophia's heart. Desperate to hold on to her dignity, she stopped reading the gossip pages altogether, focusing instead on her medical treatments and the modest philanthropic projects she managed to keep afloat. Her autoimmune disorder demanded a strict regimen, weekly infusions, potent steroids, and regular check-ins with Dr. Lee. The side effects were draining, and though her parents offered unwavering support, she yearned for Victor's presence. Each day, she was forced to face the stark reality that her husband, the person who should have been her rock, had become increasingly estranged. Victor's behavior grew colder. When he was in town, he stayed in his office until the early hours or claimed he needed to rest in the guest suite. Their once loving conversations dwindled to icy, perfunctory exchanges about finances or housekeeping. On the rare occasions they attended social functions together, he barely acknowledged her, gravitating toward potential business allies instead. Sophia found an unlikely confidant in Jennifer Caldwell, the fashion entrepreneur who was once enamored with the couple's fairy tale romance. Over coffee at a quiet Manhattan cafe, Jennifer softly admitted, "I've seen Victor with Alana. It's not just business, Sophia." Her eyes brimmed with sympathy. "I'm so sorry. I had hoped the rumors were baseless." It was a painful confirmation of what Sophia had already suspected. The next day, in a moment of desperation, she confronted Victor about his intentions for their marriage. "Are you ending this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Tell me the truth." Victor, dressed in a sleek suit and checking his watch, hardly met her gaze. "Sophia, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be," he said flatly. "I need my freedom right now. I'm on the brink of major expansions, and all you do is cling to me with these medical issues." He brushed away her tears as if they were inconsequential. "You should just focus on your health. The attorneys will contact you about the separation details." Separation. The word echoed through the penthouse like a thunderclap. Sophia's heart pounded, her sense of reality spinning. She tried to plead with him, reminded him of their vows, the love they once shared. But Victor stared at her with a dispassionate coolness. "I've made up my mind," he said. "I'll make sure you're provided for." That was the final blow. After he left, Sophia sank onto the marble floor, sobbing. Her body shivered with anguish, but she also felt a sharp pang of fury. It was a slow, burning ember, one that would soon erupt into a plan more cunning than anyone could have imagined. Victor wasted no time formalizing his departure. Within days, Sophia received official paperwork from a high-profile divorce attorney named Daniel Lang, who was known for securing favorable terms for affluent clients. The documents laid out the proposed settlement, a respectable sum that Victor assumed would be enough to keep her comfortable. It was a cold, transactional approach that made Sophia's blood boil. They were discussing the end of a marriage, one that had begun with genuine love and promises of forever reduced to a sterile, legal procedure. Even more galling was the fact that the settlement was lopsided. Victor's empire, worth billions, would remain largely untouched, while Sophia would walk away with a small fraction. Word spread quickly among their social circle. Some took Victor's side, murmuring about his right to find someone more fitting to his high-paced lifestyle. Others pitied Sophia, though often from a distance, fearing reprisal from the powerful Harrington network. Her parents were livid, urging her to take Victor to court for a fair share of the fortune. But Sophia, reeling from heartache and battling a debilitating illness, felt too weary to fight, at least at first. Her health deteriorated further under the weight of stress. She began losing weight rapidly, her immune system seemingly at war with itself. Nights were spent vomiting, her body ravaged by the side effects of new medication. Alone in the penthouse, she struggled to pack up her belongings, anticipating the day she would be forced to leave. During a routine checkup, Dr. Lee, noticing Sophia's worsening condition, grew alarmed. "Stress is severely aggravating your autoimmune disorder," she warned. "You need rest, emotional support. You can't handle this alone." But alone was precisely what Sophia was. Victor had abandoned her for Alana, who was now rumored to be staying with him in a lavish suite in Hong Kong. Photographs showed them smiling at fashionable galas overseas. And now, with these divorce papers, he was cutting the final thread. The marriage was effectively over, and his legal team was pressing for a swift resolution. One bleak afternoon, Sophia found herself standing in the penthouse living room, gazing at the city skyline. Boxes lay half-packed around her, each one echoing the slow dismantling of her life. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks, but intermingled with sorrow was an emerging sense of resolve. She recalled every slight, every betrayal, and realized that the man who claimed to care for her had tossed her aside like an unwanted accessory. Her heart was battered, but not broken beyond repair. Something within her, an unfamiliar but powerful instinct, stirred to life. She might be sick, but she was not helpless. Taking a shaky breath, she placed the divorce papers on the coffee table and made a quiet vow to herself. She would not be destroyed. She would find a way to fight back. In the weeks following Victor's announcement, Sophia embarked on a journey of quiet strategy. She recognized that confronting him directly, especially while her health remained precarious, would be a losing game. His legal team was formidable, and he held almost all the cards. But while reviewing old emails and documents, she found a glimmer of an opportunity. Months earlier, Victor had asked her to sign a series of financial papers, claiming they were standard forms, granting her partial shares in an overseas venture. At the time, she had scrawled her signature without a second thought, eager to support her husband's business expansions. Now, flipping through those papers, she discovered a detail Victor had likely overlooked. She possessed a legitimate stake in a crucial segment of Harrington Industries' new global division. Most wives of billionaires rarely took an active interest in the intricacies of their husbands' business dealings. Sophia, however, had once managed finances for various charities, honing a keen eye for detail. She recognized that her ownership percentage, though not large, could potentially grant her leverage. She contacted an old friend, Thomas Reyes, a financial analyst who had helped set up her youth arts foundation. Together, they pored over the documentation for hours. "It's a chunk of equity in Harrington's Asia-Pacific real estate developments," Thomas explained. "It's not just minor shares, Sophia. The value has skyrocketed since the expansions in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Jakarta. Depending on the precise terms, you could hold the swing vote in certain business decisions." A spark of determination flared in Sophia. Could this be her bargaining chip? She decided to operate discreetly, confiding in only a few trusted allies: Thomas, Jennifer Caldwell, and her parents. Fiona Morgan, a lawyer specializing in corporate law, was also brought into the fold. Together, they strategized. If Victor thought he could simply discard her, she would show him that she still had a voice in the empire he so prized. Meanwhile, her medical condition stabilized slightly, thanks to a revised treatment plan from Dr. Lee. The new therapy required weekly visits to the hospital, but at least it reduced the incessant nausea and fatigue that had plagued her. With a slightly clearer mind, Sophia felt emboldened to press on. She began collecting evidence of Victor's questionable financial moves, records of hush money payments to cover up personal indiscretions, business deals that skirted ethical guidelines, and even some suspicious stock transfers. Each discovery hardened her resolve. This was no longer just about a divorce settlement. It was about justice for the heartbreak, the betrayal, and the contempt he had shown her when she needed him most. From the outside, Sophia appeared fragile, a soon-to-be ex-wife battling an illness. On the inside, however, she was orchestrating a careful plan. Step by step, she would use every resource, every connection, to ensure Victor Harrington paid dearly for discarding her in her time of greatest need. As Sophia delved deeper into the financial documents, she realized she needed more than just legal counsel. She required social leverage. Victor's sphere of influence was immense, spanning not only the business world but also politics and high society. To stand a chance, she needed allies in places that could counterbalance his power. Her first move was to reconnect with Jennifer Caldwell. Jennifer's booming fashion line, Caldwell Couture, had garnered press coverage across Europe and Asia. At a private brunch in Soho, Sophia laid out the broad strokes of Victor's betrayal. Moved by Sophia's plight, Jennifer offered her public relations network. "If you ever need to leak a story or tip to the right journalist," Jennifer explained, "I have the connections to do it discreetly." Next, Sophia approached Michael Donovan, who was once a close confidant of Victor's, but had grown uncomfortable with the billionaire's recent behavior. Though Michael was a corporate lawyer, he disliked how the Harrington empire had become ethically compromised. Over coffee in a discreet midtown cafe, Sophia revealed some of Victor's more unscrupulous deals, ones that danced dangerously close to illegal. Michael's eyes narrowed as he scanned the documents. "If this is true," he muttered, "Victor could be facing serious legal repercussions." He volunteered to guide Sophia through potential litigation, or at least be a valuable consultant for Fiona Morgan's legal strategy. Thomas Reyes, still crunching numbers behind the scenes, confirmed that Sophia's equity shares represented a critical foothold in Harrington's Asia-Pacific division. Should she choose to contest the divorce settlement in court, she might claim a larger portion or even block certain deals crucial to Victor's international expansion. "If Victor underestimates you," Thomas noted, "that's a mistake we can use to our advantage." Sophia's parents, Margaret and Thomas Maxwell, offered unwavering emotional support. Though they couldn't provide legal or financial expertise, they gave her something equally important: love and stability. In their modest suburban home, she found respite from the pressure. They fussed over her, making sure she ate nutritious meals and took her medication on time. The puzzle pieces began to fall into place. Sophia realized she needed to strike at the precise moment, coordinating her resources for maximum impact. If done correctly, she could potentially bring Victor's empire and his new paramour crashing down. Of course, the plan was risky. Each passing day weighed on her health, and the slightest misstep could reveal her hand before she was ready. But with every memory of Victor's cruelty, his dismissive words, the chilly looks, the public affair, her resolve to fight crystallized. She would not be a silent victim. She would be the architect of his downfall. A hush fell over the Harrington Asia boardroom one humid afternoon in Hong Kong. Victor, seated at the head of the table, was finalizing the acquisition of a luxury hotel chain that would cement Harrington Industries' dominance in the region. Alana Sinclair sat to his right, an ever-present figure whose influence seemed to stretch beyond mere business counsel. Midway through the meeting, an assistant rushed in with urgent paperwork. In hushed Cantonese, she explained that a major shareholder from the United States was contesting the terms of the acquisition. The assistant handed Victor a document stamped with official seals from a New York law firm, Fiona Morgan's name glaring in bold at the bottom. Frowning, Victor flipped through the pages. His expression darkened. According to the filing, Sophia Harrington nee Maxwell possessed a significant stake in the newly formed subsidiary through share allocations he had once made in a hurry. Furthermore, the filing sought an injunction preventing the finalization of the acquisition until her objections were addressed. If the court granted her request, the entire deal would stall, threatening to unravel months of negotiation. Alana glanced at Victor with concern. "This is an inconvenience," she whispered, trying to reassure him. "We can pay her off, can't we?" But Victor's eyes betrayed a flicker of alarm. He knew how thorough Sophia could be. He had once admired her meticulous nature. If she had discovered these shares and was using them to block his key acquisition, it wasn't just a petty nuisance. It was a declaration of war. Across the Pacific, in a modest New York law office, Sophia felt both terrified and exhilarated. She had just filed the injunction alongside Fiona Morgan. Thomas Rise and Michael Donovan stood by to assist. The waiting game began. Would the Hong Kong courts honor the filing? Would Victor attempt to bully her into submission? There was no turning back now. Days later, media outlets in Asia caught wind of the legal conflict. Rumors swirled. The Harrington Empire's expansion might be in jeopardy. "You're leaving." Victor's voice cracked as he watched Alana pack her designer suitcase. Alana sighed, slipping on her sunglasses. "Victor, let's be real. You were fun when you were a billionaire. Now, not so much." "But we," she chuckled, shaking her head, "we used each other. Don't act surprised." And just like that, she walked out, leaving him alone in the penthouse that felt far too empty. In Manhattan, Jennifer Caldwell discreetly fed tidbits to a business journalist she trusted, ensuring the story garnered traction. Headlines read, "Billionaire's estranged wife throws a wrench into global deal." Victor, cornered, issued a statement claiming the dispute was a simple misunderstanding. Alana, by his side, exuded confidence on camera, but insiders whispered that the tension behind closed doors was palpable. Outwardly, Victor maintained composure, asserting that negotiations would continue. Inwardly, he fumed at Sophia's audacity. He vowed to crush her legal challenge, convinced she was merely grasping at straws. But Sophia had only just begun. She could practically feel Victor's fury an ocean away, and for the first time in months, she felt a sense of power return to her. Her health still wavered, and she navigated her illness carefully, but each small victory invigorated her spirit. She had thrown the first punch. Now it was time to see how the mighty would respond. As the corporate battle intensified, Sophia pressed further into Victor's past transactions, aiming to expose any vulnerabilities. Michael Donovan carefully combed through archived contracts, and it didn't take long for them to discover an unsettling pattern. Victor had a history of striking covert deals, sometimes bordering on insider trading and funneling funds into offshore accounts. Though not outright illegal in every instance, the optics were damning. When confronted with the information, Jennifer Caldwell expressed her concern. Sophia, releasing these details could invite serious legal scrutiny for Victor and maybe even for Harrington Industries as a whole. "Are you ready for that kind of blowback?" Sophia paused, considering the possible ramifications. She did not want to punish innocent employees who depended on Harrington Industries for their livelihood. But the recollection of Victor's disdainful sneer, his mocking disregard for her health, and the humiliating way he paraded Alana had fueled a righteous anger. She was not out to harm the employees. She was out to make Victor face consequences for his transgressions, both personal and professional. Meanwhile, Victor's fury reached a boiling point. He spent hours on transatlantic video calls with his attorneys, trying to find a loophole to undo Sophia's share allocations. The memory of that casual day he'd asked her to sign off on the documents haunted him. He had assumed he was simply transferring small, meaningless percentages as a gesture of trust. Now, those percentages could derail his biggest acquisition yet. Caught in the crossfire, Alana began showing signs of impatience. She had her own ambitions tied to the success of these deals, hoping to use Victor's resources to expand her personal investment portfolio. Word in social circles suggested she pressured Victor to handle Sophia quickly, encouraging him to settle or strong-arm her legally. But each attempt to placate Sophia with an increased settlement was met with silence or further legal challenges. On the personal front, Sophia's health seesawed unpredictably. One day she felt steady enough to attend a strategy meeting with Fiona Morgan. The next, she was bedridden with a high fever. Yet each time she regained even a fraction of strength, she channeled it into pushing the plan forward. The knowledge that she could not afford a prolonged battle only sharpened her determination. She needed decisive, impactful moves now. Eventually, the tabloids began picking up on the tension within the Harrington empire. Speculation about Victor's moral character grew louder, questioning whether a man who abandoned his ill wife for a mistress could be trusted with global business dealings. For someone like Victor, who prided himself on reputation, this was a bitter pill to swallow. Sophia watched the unfolding drama quietly, acknowledging that every new revelation took a toll on her as well. But she steeled herself with one overriding thought: she would not rest until Victor learned that no fortune is worth the heart you trample along the way. Under mounting pressure from both legal hurdles and negative publicity, Victor took drastic measures. He convened a special board meeting in New York, summoning key stakeholders and senior executives. Alana was there, as was Daniel Lang, the formidable divorce attorney. The atmosphere crackled with tension as they strategized ways to neutralize Sophia's influence. "We can discredit her," Lang suggested bluntly. "Hire investigators to dig into her medical history. Paint her as unstable, unfit. If the court believes she's not mentally competent, it undermines her claims to those shares." Alana, seated beside Victor, nodded curtly. "And we can imply she's only doing this for a larger payout. Make it seem like she's extorting you." Victor stared down at the conference table, jaw clenched. Although their suggestions might be effective, something in him hesitated. A small, nagging voice reminded him of who Sophia used to be: her warmth, her sincerity. But that voice was drowned out by the desire to protect his empire. "Do whatever it takes," he finally said, shoving aside any remnants of guilt. Meanwhile, Sophia, blissfully unaware of these underhanded tactics, prepared for another trip to the hospital for a scheduled infusion. Her condition was stable for the moment, but Dr. Lee warned that the constant stress could trigger a relapse. After finishing her treatment for the day, she found a swarm of reporters waiting outside. Cameras flashed, and a flurry of questions erupted. "Miss Harrington, any comment on your husband's latest statement? Is it true you're leveraging your illness to gain sympathy in the divorce? Have you heard about Alana Sinclair moving into Victor's penthouse?" Bewildered and hurt, Sophia managed a dignified silence as she was escorted to her car by security. She realized then that Victor's camp had likely orchestrated this ambush, a calculated move to paint her as a manipulator seeking public pity. The cruelty of it took her breath away. Yet adversity only strengthened her resolve. That evening, she called a meeting with Thomas Reyes, Fiona Morgan, and Michael Donovan. Over a conference table in Fiona's office, they laid out a new plan: intensify their own media strategy, release carefully chosen financial documents that exposed Victor's questionable ethics, and time everything so it coincided with critical negotiations in Asia. Victor thinks he can crush me, Sophia said, her voice quavering only slightly. He believes I'm too weak to fight. But let's show him that I'm not going to fold under pressure. An eerie quiet followed her statement. In their eyes, she saw unwavering support. They were past the point of half measures. With Alana and Victor escalating their offensive, it was time to meet fire with fire. The collision course had been set, and only one side would emerge unscathed. Victor showed up at Sophia's townhouse unannounced, looking disheveled. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. "Sophia, we need to talk." His voice, once so cold, now held desperation. She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Talk? Like how you talked to me when I begged for your support?" He swallowed hard. "I was wrong. I let things get out of control. No, Victor. You made a choice." Her voice was steady, unwavering. "And now you have to live with it." She shut the door in his face, leaving him standing in the cold. Late on a Friday afternoon, just as markets prepared to close, a bombshell story broke on a prominent financial news website. The expose, backed by leaked internal emails and bank statements, revealed that Victor Harrington had engaged in ethically dubious, potentially illegal financial maneuvers. Headlines blared, "Harrington Empire under scrutiny," "Insider trading, tax evasion allegations surface." Journalists pounced on the story, dissecting each detail. The documents, which pointed to offshore shell companies and suspiciously timed trades, painted Victor as a figure who believed himself above the law. Although no direct mention was made of Alana Sinclair, the scandal cast a long shadow on her credibility as well, given her rumored intimacy with Victor. In a statement to the press, Michael Donovan, acting as Sophia's spokesperson, asserted that the information came to light during routine inquiries into Harrington Industries' expansions, leaving the public to infer that Sophia's legal pursuit had inadvertently unearthed these skeletons. This, of course, was a carefully orchestrated tactic, culminating weeks of digging by Sophia's team. Overnight, Harrington Industries' stock plummeted. Shareholders clamored for an emergency meeting, anxious to salvage their investments. Alana, once radiant with the glow of newfound power, discovered that association with Victor had turned toxic. Banks and investors threatened to pull out of deals. Rumors swirled of regulatory probes and possible indictments. Victor was livid. In a desperate bid to do damage control, he convened yet another board meeting, teleconferencing with high-priced lawyers and PR specialists. The stress weighed heavily on him. Dark circles rimmed his eyes, and he snapped at anyone who offered less than optimistic updates. There was no denying that the hallmark of his empire, its veneer of invincibility, had been shattered. Sophia, watching from the sidelines, felt a wave of conflicting emotions. She had wanted Victor to face the consequences of his betrayal, but seeing the entire Harrington empire teeter on the brink gave her little sense of triumph. The father she once knew in him, the caring man who would gently kiss her forehead, seemed lost forever beneath the avalanche of scandal and greed. Still, she pressed on. Her own medical treatments continued, draining her physically, but her spirit refused to break. She realized that despite her personal grief, there was a broader principle at stake. Those who abuse power and trample on the vulnerable must be held accountable. If her victory meant forcing him to confront the havoc he'd wreaked on her life and potentially others, then she would see it through. By Monday morning, the Harrington name, once a symbol of prestige, had become synonymous with scandal. And in a twist of fate that few could have anticipated, the very woman Victor had dismissed as weak and irrelevant was emerging as the catalyst for his downfall. The public uproar surrounding Victor's alleged crimes reached a crescendo. Financial regulators announced an official investigation, sending Harrington Industries' senior leadership into panic mode. The board convened in New York for an emergency session, and for the first time in Harrington history, they contemplated ousting the figurehead who had long been seen as their unstoppable leader. Victor, cornered, lashed out at everyone, his attorneys, his PR team, and even Alana. Their once glamorous relationship began to sour as she recognized her own reputation was at risk. Tempers flared behind closed doors, culminating in a heated confrontation. "I trusted you," Alana hissed, her voice trembling with anger. "I risked everything for these deals. Now I'm dragged into your mess." Sophia, meanwhile, stood on firmer ground than she had in a long time emotionally, if not physically. Though she was still frail and required constant medical checkups, her team of supporters shielded her from the media storm. Thomas Rise confirmed that the Asia-Pacific subsidiary had frozen the acquisition pending the outcome of the investigations, effectively blocking the deal that Victor had pursued at the expense of his marriage. Jennifer Caldwell continued to feed controlled leaks to journalists, ensuring that public sympathy leaned towards Sophia. Eventually, Victor's legal counsel advised him to meet with Sophia's team for a settlement conference. The alternative was an all-out court battle that could further erode his remaining financial footing. In a sunlit conference room overlooking the Hudson River, Sophia arrived with Fiona Morgan and Michael Donovan. Victor entered with Daniel Lang, a scowl etched onto his face. Alana was conspicuously absent. The silence was thick with tension as the meeting began. Victor tried to maintain his usual commanding demeanor, but every aspect of his posture hinted at desperation. Fiona outlined the proposed divorce settlement significantly amended from the initial lopsided offer. This time, it demanded a hefty portion of Victor's wealth, full retention of Sophia's shares, and a dissolution of any claim he might have on her philanthropic projects. Victor seethed. "You think you can just rip my empire from me?" Sophia met his glare with steady eyes. "You left me at my weakest. You humiliated me. You've shown no remorse, only contempt." She paused, voice trembling. "Yes, I'm asking for what's owed to me. But more than that, I'm ensuring you can't do this to anyone else." Lang attempted to negotiate, but Sophia's team held firm. They had every advantage, now public sympathy, potential criminal charges looming, and the moral high ground. Reluctantly, Victor conceded to most of the demands. He had little choice. Any drawn-out fight risked further legal woes and additional leaks that could bury him entirely. By the end of the grueling session, Sophia emerged with a settlement that granted her a substantial share of Harrington Industries' assets. More importantly, she retained the autonomy to pursue her philanthropic endeavors. As Victor slumped in his chair, defeated, she walked away, heart pounding with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The man she had once adored was reduced to a shell of fury and regret, all because he valued his ambitions and another woman above loyalty and love. The final settlement was a turning point for all involved. Overnight, Sophia found herself unexpectedly wealthy, not just from the monetary value of the settlement, but in the sense of newfound freedom. She moved into a comfortable townhouse in the Upper East Side, one that felt more like a home than any penthouse ever had. Surrounded by her parents, close friends, and an inner circle that had stood by her side, she began the long process of healing. Her health remained a challenge, but Dr. Lee noted a marked improvement in her stress levels. The frequent fevers subsided, and while the autoimmune disorder never fully vanished, the reduced emotional strain allowed her body a fighting chance. Week by week, she grew stronger, even resuming her involvement in the Youth Arts Foundation now, with ample resources to expand it citywide. Meanwhile, the fallout for Victor Harrington was catastrophic. Faced with crippling legal fees and the meltdown of his international expansion, he had to sell off major portions of Harrington Industries just to stay afloat. The board voted to replace him as CEO, effectively ending the Harrington family's long reign at the helm. Alana Sinclair distanced herself from the scandal, citing irreconcilable creative differences in their partnership. And rumor had it, she moved on to another wealthy investor in Europe. For a time, Victor tried to salvage what remained, but every day brought fresh humiliation lawsuits from shareholders, sensational headlines dissecting his downfall, and rumors that even longtime friends had turned their backs on him. He found himself alone in a smaller apartment overlooking the same city he once believed he controlled. The press hounded him, awaiting any sign of repentance or admission of guilt, but he remained silent. One crisp autumn morning, Sophia stood by her window, gazing at the amber leaves drifting onto the street. She clutched a mug of tea, contemplating her next steps. Beyond her philanthropic projects, she pondered writing a book about her experiences, transforming her pain into a cautionary tale that could help others facing betrayal and adversity. Jennifer Caldwell promised to connect her with a literary agent whenever she was ready. She thought about Victor for a fleeting moment. Despite everything, there was a lingering sorrow for the love they once shared, but that sorrow was tempered by the knowledge that he had chosen his path, and she had chosen hers. No longer burdened by resentment, she whispered a quiet goodbye to the man he used to be. Gathering her courage, Sophia left the townhouse to meet with her foundation's board members, stepping into the brisk air of a day brimming with possibility. She felt lighter than she had in years, buoyed by the realization that, though life could shatter us, it also offered the chance to rebuild. And rebuild she did, forging a new future from the ashes of betrayal. Through adversity, she discovered a strength she never knew she possessed, a strength that left her ex-husband with nothing but regret. In the end, Sophia Harrington's quiet determination proved far mightier than her husband's billions. What began as a tragic story of abandonment and heartbreak evolved into a testament of resilience, courage, and the power of forging your own destiny. Even as Victor's empire crumbled under the weight of deceit, Sophia rose from the rubble, transformed from a forsaken spouse into a triumphant architect of her own future. Her journey reminds us that love means standing by someone in sickness and in health, and when one partner fails in that promise, the betrayed can discover untapped reserves of strength. If this tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate redemption resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support ensures we can continue bringing you stories of resilience and empowerment. Let us know in the comments, do you believe revenge can be just? We look forward to hearing your thoughts and sharing more riveting stories soon.